let's talk about cells. For a lot of you, this is going to be review, and that's okay because it never hurts to review. But we want to talk about cells specifically in relation to plants, so that later on when we talk about photosynthesis and we refer to some of these cell organelles, the little organs within each cell that make them work, it all makes sense. So even if this is a little bit of review, that's great, and if it's not, that's fine too. So you already know I'm a fan of mnemonics. I've got a mnemonic up here. Very nasty rumors can cause much grief. So that's going to help us to remember each of our cell organelles that we're talking about. These are not the only things in the cells by a long shot. Cells are very complicated, but these are the basic cell organelles that we're going to concern ourselves with. So take note of that mnemonic. So I'm going to draw a little cell wall. So our cells and animal cells are more shapeable, they're softer, they're sort of, can be a little more gushier if you want to say. So a plant cell wall is very specific. It's a very specific rectangle type shape. So what gives the cell its firm cell wall and makes it not quite so easily to form in different shapes? I'll give you a couple of hints. This is what paper's made out of. This is what fiber that we eat is made out of. So the cell wall of a plant is called cellulose, or it's made of cellulose, okay? So that's the part of the plant that actually gives us the fiber content when we eat it. And again, it's what clothing is made of, so it's plant fibers. It's what paper's made out of, cellulose. So that makes cell walls of plants different than cell walls of animals. All right, because we don't have cellulose in our plant walls or in our cell walls. All right, so cellulose cell wall. Within the cell wall, we have a little cell membrane. I'm just going to draw this little membrane here. All right, so everything is within the cell membrane. Let's start with our V, very. So plants have one big, this is the biggest organelle in the cell. It's called the vacuole. One big vacuole. Vacuole. Sorry, my whiteboard is pretty small. So the vacuole is full of cell sap, which is basically water and little pigments and things like that. So what the vacuole does is vacuums the cell. It cleans the cell. So anything within the cell that starts to not work quite right, anything in the cell that dies, the vacuole takes that out. So it's the cleaner. So you can think of vacuole, vacuum. It's the cleaner of the cell. So animal cells, our cells, don't really have vacuoles. They have lysosomes. So lysosomes is what cleans our cells, and the vacuole is what cleans the plant cells. So that's a little difference there. So, but next we have the N. The N is for the nucleus. So the nucleus is going to be the brain of the cell. It's going to contain the DNA and the RNA. Now, RNA can travel in and out. We're going to talk more about RNA just a little bit later. But RNA can travel in and out. DNA cannot. DNA stays in that nucleus, okay? Each cell only has the one nucleus, and DNA stays in there so it can stay protected. We definitely don't want anything damaging our DNA because that's what is the map. That's the master plan of our whole bodies. So we don't want anything damaging that. All right, so the DNA and the RNA are in the nucleus. That's the brain of the plant cell. Next, we have ribosomes, okay? I'm going to represent a ribosome as a heart, just to differentiate it. The reason I chose a heart is because ribosomes actually have two what we call subunits. And we're not going to get into subunits, don't even worry about that. But because a ribosome does have two subunits, I'm going to represent it as a heart, okay? So what does a ribosome do? Ribosome. Ribosome actually produces proteins, okay? So it takes amino acids and whatever the RNA says needs to be made, whatever the DNA says needs to be made, the RNA will go out and tell the ribosomes what to make. So the ribosomes will build proteins. So little heart just to differentiate them. Next, the C. So we've got two C's. We've got a chloroplast and a chromoplast. So these are pigments, also referred to as plastids, okay? Chloroplast, chromoplast are plastids or pigments. So chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, which gives the plant their green color. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about photosynthesis. So these are chloroplasts. Hope y'all can see this. I tried to move close. That have chlorophyll in them, which makes the plant green. So all your other plastids, your pigments, which is a substance that reflects or absorbs light, okay? So your other ones might be red, might be yellow, might be orange. What happens in the fall when a leaf changes from green to another color? What colors do you see? What you're actually seeing is the death of the chloroplast, and what you're seeing come out is the chromoplast. So red, yellow, orange, all of those are different colors of chromoplasts. Chromoplast. Okay. There we go. So that's our C and our C, chloroplast and chromoplast. M. So I like to represent this one as a little, this is what I imagine a lung looks like with my great artwork. There we go, that's a lung. So this is mitochondria, okay? Mitochondria, where can I write mitochondria? Mitochondria. Mitochondria are really, really important. These have been referred to as the power pack of the cell, okay? So mitochondria, and again, we'll get into this with photosynthesis, but mitochondria actually produce ATP, which is really important to know. We have ATP in us. Plants have ATP. Every living thing has ATP created by the mitochondria. So ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is actually like it's a, think of it as a currency, maybe like it's the currency that every biological system has to spend to do something. In other words, do you want your heart to beat? Okay, well, you need some ATP. You got to spend some ATP to make your heart beat. Do you want to digest some food? Well, you got to spend some ATP to digest your food. Do you want to breathe? You got to spend some ATP. Do you want to get taller? You got to spend some ATP to get taller. So every biological function is fueled by ATP. So it's the fuel of all biological systems. Same thing for the flower. Does the flower want to, for the plant. Does the plant want to make a flower? Does the plant want to grow taller? Does the plant want to grow some more roots? All of that takes ATP. Okay. Does the plant want to perform photosynthesis? It's got to spend some ATP. So that is made in the mitochondria. All right. So one thing that's really interesting about mitochondria is that the mitochondria actually has a little tiny bit of DNA in it. So when, let's say if you use the 23andMe program and they want to trace back your lineage, your female lineage, they actually use mitochondrial DNA because it's passed down on the female line. So it doesn't have a big effect on the plant, but it is there. So it's pretty interesting. All right, G, Golgi body. So you may hear this as Golgi apparatus. I'm drawing this with a lot of legs. Okay. So what does our Golgi bodies do, or the Golgi apparatus? But let's just say Golgi bodies. Golgi. There we go. So what does the Golgi do? All right, so this actually ships proteins. So our ribosomes make the proteins, and then our Golgi bodies are going to ship them wherever they need to go. Do they need to go to the epidermis of the plant, which you can think of that as the skin of the plant? Where do these proteins need to go? The Golgi bodies will ship them, okay? They also repair the cell wall. So that's why I drew them along the cell wall, because they repair the cell wall. They have a couple different jobs. So that's the Golgi. So that's pretty much all of the organelles I want you to know. How do cells communicate with each other? Well, this cell is not filled with air. It's filled with like a liquid goo, okay? Little strands of liquid goo. And these little strands of liquid goo go can cross over the membrane in the cell wall and go cell to cell. And this goo that supports everything is actually called cytoplasm. Okay, so the cytoplasm, since it goes cell to cell, it can carry messages cell to cell. So it can carry these hormone messages that say, hey, we need to get ready to do something. And we will touch on hormones, plant hormones later. But just know that everything, that the cytoplasm is the liquid goo that fills the cell, and it communicates cell to cell. So one more term for you that we won't use this term a lot, but you do need to know it. Everything within the cell membrane is called the protoplast. The protoplast, okay? So when the protoplast dies, which would actually include the membrane, what's going to be left when the protoplast dies? When all this dies, you're just going to be left with the cellulose cell wall, right? And that's important for plants because that can actually be how, that can get to be bark material, or that tells us, you know, when you just have the cell wall, you're not going to be able to transfer things through it anymore. And that's how leaves fall, okay? The petiole, which is the little stem that attaches the leaf to a branch, in the petiole, the protoplast will die, which means you can't, nothing will keep transferring through them. And so when the protoplast die at the base of the petiole, the leaf is going to fall off. So that's why that's kind of important to know, protoplast. All right, let me look at my notes and see if that's everything I wanted to tell you. I know I'm going quickly, but that's because we really just want to hit these videos real quickly, have short videos, but you can watch them over and over again if you need to. So I think I've hit on everything I want to tell you about this. I've got a challenge for you. I want you to stop this video, get a piece of paper, and I want you write down this mnemonic, and I want you to try to create your own cell, okay? Draw your cell out with all the organelles and draw, label them and what they do, and see if you can do that. If you don't get all of them, come back and watch this video again. All right, have a great day. Good luck.